Senator Cortez Masto is from Nevada is recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and the ranking member. Thank you for the panelists as well. This really requires us to work in a bipartisan way without gotcha moments, and I appreciate the discussion today. But I do think that let's be candid and at the same time tell the facts. We're concerned about previous actions as they led to where we are today, and then how we address moving forward, working together. If I recall, in 2018, it was the Trump administration that pulled us out of the JCPOA. It was the Trump administration who refused to impose sanctions under CAATSA. So there's enough blame to go around. But let's focus on where we are today, because I think this is where we should be and what we need to do. Let me just start with the first question. I think what I've been hearing, and I've been listening this morning, as well as to the conversation from the panelists, and thank you, very esteemed panelists, we all agree that we need to make sure that Israel has the support it needs to defend it against the threats posted by Hamas and other terrorist organizations. I'm also concerned about the threat by Hezbollah that it continues to pose against Israel's security. We all know, and we're hearing from all of you, much of the support comes from Iran's state sponsorship of terrorism of Hezbollah, Hamas, and the like. I also recognize that Hezbollah and Hamas still receive funding from private donations and organized crime syndicates across the globe. My question to all of you is, how can and is the administration working with our European allies to really crack down on the illegal funding of terrorist organizations like Hamas, like Hezbollah, like we've been talking about? How do we, what is it that is happening with our European allies, and what more should we be doing? And maybe Mr. Levitt, I'll start with you.
Thank you so much. The Deputy Secretary of the Treasury is about to take off for Europe on this exact issue. And so you're seeing top-level engagement on this issue in general, and specifically on the issue of Hamas, which traditionally hasn't gotten as much traction with our foreign partners, including the Europeans, who have seen Hamas as a lesser threat, not a threat to the international community, just to Israel. The October 7th attack was one of the worst acts of international terrorism ever. Number of countries that were affected, number of people killed, number of people wounded, number of people kidnapped. And so there's an opportunity now to see Hamas for what it is and to get better buy-in and activity. When the president of France goes to Israel and says the counter-ISIS coalition should take on the job of countering Hamas, that's not likely to happen, but a coalition of its own to get together and do more, in particular in the financing, is a very smart idea. And whether it happens or not, when the president of France says this, not someone who's typically been so hard on Hamas, that's a big step forward.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm happy to respond. I do think the coalition against Hamas is required, like was done with ISIS. And I think that there are many tools that have not been used so far. First, to have a global designation on Hamas as a terror organization, as was done on ISIL, meaning that all countries will have to impose that in all currencies, not only in US dollars or euro. In addition, we need to make sure that secondary sanctions are being imposed. For example, we do see, it's known intelligence that Turkish exchanges and banks are constantly working in order to support Hamas, and the world is just putting, blind eye on that. Another thing is to make sure that we have enough transparency on the economies of the region. For example, Lebanon is hosting or is having internally Hezbollah. We haven't seen report, for example, by FATF that actually doing the analysis of how to treat the Lebanonian economy and what should be done in order to make sure that Hezbollah does not control it or use that in order to those actions. And last but not least, also the Palestinian authorities had never been evaluated by FATF in order to check what is going on the financial system of the Palestinian Authority, and this should be examined so we'll better understand the relationship between the economies of Gaza and the rest of the Palestinian authorities, and it actually also answers previous questions about how do we know where the funds are going. If we don't know what happens in the Palestinian Authority economy in general, we will never know what's actually going in practice.
And I only have a few seconds left, but you touched on something that was the next question, was Turkey. Because we also know where Erdogan basically stated Hamas, they're not terrorists. So how do we address the concerns that you brought up, which was my question, is how do we address the terrorist financing that potentially may be going through that country?
So I think that after the event of this month, no question mark should be still be in the air. This is pure terrorism, and this is why we need the international pressure. If was not clear until now.
Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it.